Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Still to come before 11 o'clock. If you were in charge of the NHS, what would you do to try and sort a long-term sustainable funding solution to sort winter pressures, overcrowded A&Es, lack of beds, queues of ambulances and so on? Are your funding solutions welcome? A council in London will today consider the next step in the launching of a special order to stop anti-abortion protesters holding daily vigils outside a Mary Stopes clinic. The demonstrators are accused of harassing women attending the abortion clinic in Ealing and displaying deliberately disturbing images. Councillors will decide whether to begin a consultation on whether or not to bring in what's called a public space protection order to prevent disruption outside. If it's granted, it will be the first time it's been used in a situation involving an abortion clinic. We're going to speak now to John Hanson-Brevetti, who is a nurse and manager at the Ealing Mary Stopes Clinic, to Councillor Binder Rai, who represents the area where the clinic is and brought this issue to the attention of Ealing Council, and Claire McCullough, founding trustee of the Good Counsel Network, which is a group which holds daily vigils outside the clinic. It's an organisation affiliated to the US anti-abortion movement. Thank you for talking to us. John Hanson-Brevetti, you've worked at the clinic in Ealing for 2 years. Tell us how those vigils have changed over that time.
We've seen the tactics used outside our doors get worse. Staff who've been at the clinic for upwards of 20 years can describe a time when it was just peaceful prayer happening outside, which people still found intimidating, but it's different to what we see today, which is people standing directly outside our gates, engaging everyone who comes past, trying to persuade them not to attend their treatment. And they do this by calling them mum, by saying they'll be haunted by the ghost of their fetus, by shoving rosaries at them, throwing holy water at them, and at times even by grabbing them or closing the gate on them to stop them from coming inside.
Apart from the last bit, grabbing and closing the gate on them, all that you have described is lawful.
It is, and that's the issue, is that when we call the police, they're quite frustrated that there's very little they can do under current laws to protect women from going through that kind of horrific experience, through that emotional blackmail. And that's why we're really pleased with the leadership that Ealing Council has shown in bringing this proposal forward, taking the next step. It's a landmark thing, and it has implications for the whole country. And we're hoping that Parliament will take their cue and show leadership at a national level as well.
What is wrong with trying to persuade a woman about to go into your clinic to have an abortion, potentially, not to have one, or to think further about it?
Part of it's the information that they're given. Women are given leaflets by these, what they call themselves pavement counsellors, that have completely false information in them, that they'll develop cancer, that they'll develop drug and alcohol habits, that they'll feel inadequate as a mother in the future. So the information they're receiving is wrong. The way in which it's being given to them is coercive, and we see it as they come through our doors. They're shaking, they're in tears, they're angry, as are their partners or their families who've come to support them.
What do they say to you when they get inside?
They tell us what they've experienced, that they've been called murderers, that they've had their paths blocked, that they've felt judged and shamed, and we see it happening not only on the way in, but on the way out as well, which is how we know that this isn't about providing information or support. This is about making people feel ashamed, scared, and intimidated about accessing treatment that they've, in most cases, really thought long and hard about and come to a firm decision already.
You have cameras outside, I assume?
It focuses just on our property. We're not allowed to film beyond that because it's a public area, and we have some large hedges that block our view of most of this.
A public space protection order is a step closer. Ealing Council going to decide tonight whether to launch a consultation on bringing one in. What impact do you think such an order would have on the Ealing Clinic if it were to be brought in?
It would be an incredible day, I think, for us to know that our patients were coming to the clinic free from that experience on the way in and on the way out. It would unfortunately create a bit of a postcode lottery where it's something that people can enjoy in Ealing, but it's still happening outside clinics across the country. But it's an important first step, and we certainly welcome it.
Claire McCullough, hello, from the Good Counsel Network. You've been going to the clinic and standing outside for several years, taking part in vigils. The last time we spoke to you on this programme, you denied all of the kind of claims that you've heard this morning from the nurse at the clinic today. Is he lying?
Unfortunately, yes. Can I just say again...
No, just...
Yes, he is. Yes, he's lying.
How do you respond to that? John Hanson-Ravetti.
I think, unfortunately, there's been a lot of denial about the impact this has on women. We hear it from our own patients. We hear it from our neighbours who phone us and say that they can see people distressed outside the clinic. We've had officers from the council for the past several weeks sitting in interviewing women, and not only have they heard it from the women, but they themselves have felt harassed and intimidated on the way in.
Claire McCullough, you wouldn't know the impact on some of the patients because once they're inside, you don't see them. So you have no idea what effect you're having on these patients.
I think when you stand outside an abortion centre for 20 years, and many of the women who stand there with us, by the way, are women who've had abortions. Many people who come to vigils outside clinics
about the women inside.
Are women who've been through abortion centres, who have been past people like us themselves who didn't maybe agree with us at that point and now come to the vigils. So I think we have a very good idea of what women may feel.
Do you accept that however you're doing it, for some women and their partners, once they get inside the Mary Stopes clinic, they are upset, distressed, angry at you, not at their own decision to have a termination? I
think abortion is something that upsets women a lot. I'm sure some women would rather... I'm trying to answer. It can take a sentence to answer a question.
No, you're answering a different question.
I accept that some women who are already extremely upset at a horrible decision they're feeling they have to take do not like our presence there. Yes, I accept that.
OK. So why do you carry on there?
Well, first of all, can I just correct again that we are affiliated to the anti-abortion movement in America? We're not. I did say that the last time we were on the show.
Why do you carry on?
We carry on because every year many women seek our help and support outside the abortion centre. Last Friday, I spoke to several of my counsellors who during the week, one of them at Ealing had spoken to a woman who'd been there 3 times, didn't want to go ahead with the abortion but felt she had no alternatives. At that moment, one of these passers-by who see women being distressed saw this crying lady and grabbed her arm and rushed into the clinic with her because she could see that this woman was upset and presumed that we were upsetting her. On that occasion, a woman had approached us for help and support that she was not getting inside the abortion centre. That's why we're still there.
Councillor Bindarai, that's the explanation, the justification for why the group is still there. What do you say?
Well, over the past 4 months or so now, our officers have been investigating all these claims. They've been collecting evidence, and what we've concluded is that the behaviour outside the clinic is unacceptable. There is harassment, there is intimidation of these women, and I think basically we have a responsibility to stop that sort of behaviour.
Why haven't you called the police?
The police have been called on some occasions, and we have constant policing outside the clinic. I know that every Saturday that I've been there, the police are there in force, but it's very difficult for the police because the current legislation is really restricting, because in terms of harassment, you've got to prove that this is continuous harassment to one individual, and many of the women that come and visit the clinic will only come once or twice, so it's really difficult to make harassment stand up legally.
I'm going to appeal to our audience. We have been trying to talk to women who have been going to the clinic. Understandably, it's a very sensitive situation, but if there's anybody watching right now who has used the clinic, who has walked past the group holding the vigils, do send me an email now or a message, and obviously you can do that anonymously, and tell us your own experiences. What would be the effect of this kind of protection order if the council takes the decision to hold a consultation on it, which is a step closer to the order?
Yes, the effect would be that we would have a certain area that would not allow any protesters to protest outside that area. So women would be able to access the clinic without anybody obstructing their journey to the clinic.
Right.
And of course we mustn't forget that that would also make life a lot easier for people living in that street, for people using the facilities in that area, the park, the theatre down the road.
What impact is it having on residents?
Well, residents are having to see this and hear this every single day.
Hear what?
The prayers They're having to look at the graphic images that are on display.
We have no graphic images.
Well, I was there on Saturday and I saw some of those graphic images.
When she talks about graphic images, she means pictures of the developing baby.
You can talk to each other. You're sitting next to each other.
You mean pictures of the developing
Yes,
baby,
I do.
not
And
abortion
I
pictures?
Think
There's nothing graphic about them.
I think it's inappropriate for very young children to see those sort of images.
To see pictures of a developing baby in the womb?
Because parents then have to choose to discuss. Parents don't have a choice in whether they're discussing those issues with their children.
What issues? Developing babies in the womb? Children see these kind of
There
images
are
all the
lots
time.
of parents that would not want to
Children
have that discussion.
See, what discussion? There's
Claire,
nothing on the images that mentions abortion.
A lot of parents have told me they've had to have discussions with their children about abortion, and that is a topic that they should be able to choose as and when they discuss that with their children, not when they're forced to.
There's nothing in those images.
There
that
is
forces
also
them
a
to have
school
that
nearby,
discussion.
and people will use a different route to get to the school. They'll use a different route to get to the park, and I don't think people should be restricted in that way because a group of people decide they want to protest. That's the pro-vigil, that's the vigil holders and the pro-choice group. I think that area needs to be brought back to normality.
If this order is ultimately brought in, that would be unprecedented.
It would.
Particularly in terms of protecting an abortion clinic, if protecting is the right word. But it would only be in place for 3 years. It only lasts for 3 years, is my understanding.
Yes, that is the difficulty with the PSPO, but we feel that once we've consulted and if residents agree, it would be the best fit for a solution for Ealing. However, we do need a national solution, and I know that myself and Julian Bell have given evidence to the Home Affairs Select Committee where we have very clearly said a national solution. We need national legislation. Otherwise, women across the country aren't going to be protected, and you're going to end up with a postcode lottery, as John stated earlier.
And we are now showing our audience images of some of the vigils outside and some of the images that are held up on placards, and I would love to read some messages from our audience, but again my tablet has decided to freeze on me, so I apologise for that. John, the work that you do at the clinic, tell us about the significance of it.
It's different for every woman who comes through. We have a lot of patients who simply feel they cannot continue with the pregnancy for whatever reason, that it would be detrimental to their lives. And in fact, the only way that abortion is legal in this country is if 2 doctors certify that continuing the pregnancy would in fact have a detrimental effect to that woman's mental or physical health. We have other women who come to us because it was actually a wanted pregnancy, but a fatal fetal abnormality has been discovered and they have to terminate. And it's these sorts of circumstances that nobody knows about when a woman is approaching our clinic, and yet they're all approached in the same way, every single one of them, and being told that they'll be punished for their decision.
That's not true.
It's what they tell us when they're in the door.
It's not true, and even if you look through the Mary Stopes log, there is 1 or 2 claims of that. Many of the claims that are actually in the Mary Stopes log, and these are the best hand-picked ones to submit as evidence, actually refer to the presence of Sister Supporter around the gate. In many instances, the actual complaints of women standing away from the clinic and phoning the clinic because they're afraid of the protest at the door refer to times when Sister Supporter are right across the doorway, which has been encouraged by both Binda and John, a group protesting our vigil, a pro-choice group who aims to stop women getting our leaflets, so they can't actually have any other choices.
Which is why we'd be very happy for a public space protection order that bans all protests. This isn't about one group. There are 5 different anti-abortion groups. We don't care which one's outside. We don't care if it's Sister Supporter who's outside. We want that area free so that women can walk in without having to walk past a crowd, without having to walk past one person.
Victoria, we've had discussions with both groups, Sister Supporter Group and the Pro-Vigil groups, and we have tried to get an agreement. We've tried to get them to agree not to do what they're doing at the moment, but we've come to a deadlock, so we have no choice.
For us to stop any specific behaviour.
You have categorically stated, Claire, that you will continue to do what you do and operate in the way that you do.
We have had no discussion with the council about stopping any particular behaviours. You have never put to us particular behaviours and asked us to stop those particular behaviours. Behaviours have been discussed with us, but we've never been told, well, if you would stop doing this or if you would stop doing that, the vigil would continue. That has never
You've also
happened.
told the Home Affairs Select Committee that you wouldn't change your behaviour. And I think it would be fair to say that Claire is in denial. We have witnessed this behaviour. We've been told it's going to continue no matter what.
When we're
so we have no choice but to look at the report that's come to committee tonight and consider consulting with residents, all stakeholders, including Claire's group and every other group, to see if a PSPO is the right way forward.
When John is saying that we're blocking the gates and shutting the gates on women, why are they not bringing forward CCTV images of this? This is exactly where their CCTV camera is, on the path, on the gate, on the doorway, where they're saying that's the only bit they can film. Not a single image of us doing this has emerged.
Okay.
Why? Because it doesn't happen.
Messages. I'll read some messages, then I want to ask you about the significance of your work, in your view, and then I'm going to talk to a woman who has used the clinic. Trevor tweets this: the anti-abortion terrorists, their words, who protest outside abortion clinics should be banned from protesting within 500 metres of the gates of a clinic. They have no right to push their own religious and moral views on others seeking lawful medical treatment. Tweet from Ariadne: what's wrong with asking a woman who is having an abortion not to have an abortion? Well, it's not your body for starters. Morgana on Facebook: regarding the anti-abortion protest, I think it's disgusting that the protesters put these women through such guilt before getting an abortion. They have no idea what their personal situation is. Perhaps they can't support the child, or a pregnancy would endanger the woman. Plus, take a look at the recent story of the children being imprisoned and shackled. Not everyone can or should be a mother, and they have no right to judge. Tweet from Marissa: I was advised to abort my child at 20 weeks because my waters had gone. My daughter is now 3 and was born at 28 weeks, 1 pound and 12 ounces. Graham: why give airtime to fundamentalists to spread their hate speech against women making an informed choice? It's revolting. I'm going to talk to one woman who actually didn't use the Ealing clinic, used a different abortion clinic. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for talking to us. I'm going to call you Isabel. I know that's not your real name, but thank you for talking to us, Isabel. Tell us about your own experience of entering an abortion clinic.
Yeah, so I actually had to go to the clinic twice. Sort of turned away the first time due to, having to wait too long. So suffered the abuse kind of twice, and it was just torturous, really. I mean, we're lucky enough to have this choice and be free to have this choice in the UK, and you should just be able to go and do what you feel is right at the time. And these people that are standing outside have no idea of who you are, where you come from, what your scenario is, and how you've got into the situation.
And what abuse was it that you suffered, Isabel, if I might ask, bearing in mind that it's a daytime audience?
Of course. Just being called a murderer, via the quite graphic images being pushed into your face, and mentioned around God and things, which again, we've in this country we can all have a choice and a free right to decide what we believe and what we don't believe in.
What impact did it have on you?
It just made a very stressful time, even more stressful, which, I don't know whether these people understand that it's still difficult to make a decision like that. So, the people in the clinics are specialised and trained to provide that support, and, that's very much welcomed, but you don't kind of need harassing when you're going about your decision.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Thank you for coming on the programme. I appreciate it. Lisa tweets this: if I wanted counselling, I wouldn't go and see someone on a street corner. Linda tweets this: people, if they want an abortion, should be able to do so peacefully and without intimidation. I really think people going in without knowing the details, they do not need self-opinionated people outside giving crass info. Concentrate on your own lives. And Joanna says, even if you are anti-abortion, you have no right to harass already distressed and vulnerable women. And so it goes on. So the decision tonight, what are you expecting?
Well, we'll have to wait and see, because there will be a debate, but I hope that Cabinet will approve the consultation and we go ahead with the next stage, because it's really important for us to protect women who are trying to access legally available healthcare without intimidation and harassment.
And briefly, Claire, the significance of your work is what?
Well, we've seen hundreds of women over the years. We've seen over 1,000 women in London choose life for their children by being offered help or just having a supportive person outside who felt that they had no alternatives. Over half of those women come from Ealing, the Ealing Centre, and I think if this is put in place, it's an attempt by the clinic to keep their profits high and very little care for women. Just look at NHS
you
Choices.
must answer that. Hang on.
NHS Choices reviews of Mary Stopes Clinic online. I'd ask you to have a look at the way women are treated in that clinic and what choices they have.
Well, we have a nurse and manager from the Mary Stopes Clinic. Would you like to respond to that point about lack of care for women and profits?
So obviously that's untrue. All of the nurses that work at the clinic, they joined this line of work to support women. I think that's easy to understand. We've heard multiple accusations that our numbers have gone down because of Good Counsel's presence outside the clinic, and actually they've gone to other clinics. So the total numbers across the UK haven't changed, and the only impact this is having is delaying treatment. Someone approaches the clinic, they see a crowd, they don't want to have to walk past it, so they rebook.
It's not actually true. Abortion figures are dropping across the
country.
country.
What that means for them is that they're having to achieve treatment at a later gestation, and it's always safer to be treated earlier, and you have more options when you're treated earlier.
Okay.
So they're being robbed of their choice and their safety by these actions.
These women are being helped, and we are seeing them and their babies, so they're not going elsewhere.
Thank you.
Certainly all of them are not.
Thank you. We'll report back on the programme, of course, tomorrow after the decision tonight. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Thank you. In the last half hour, we asked you to get in touch with your experiences of an abortion clinic in Ealing in West London. The council is meeting today to discuss whether to introduce a special order to stop any protesters holding vigils outside that Mary Stopes clinic. Claire McCullough, founding trustee of the Good Counsel Network, which holds daily vigils outside the clinic, told us their protests were not over the top. So we asked you to get in touch and share your experiences. Louisa used the clinic in Ealing 5 years ago. Lisa is not her real name and also used the same clinic. Hello, both of you.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Louisa, tell us your experience.
Yes, I have been to the clinic. It was my first termination. And as soon as I got there with my partner, I had a woman coming to me with very graphic images, with leaflets, and then calling me a murderer. I went inside the clinic crying already. I had lots of support inside the clinic, and that created a big impact when I went home after I finished the termination. Those people made my experience worse than what it already was, because all I kept thinking was that, am I a murderer? I was doubting myself, and I don't think those people should be in those places.
OK, let me bring in Lisa. Lisa isn't her real name. You also use the same clinic, and you were accompanying your daughter who had an abortion. Lisa, I understand. Tell us what happened.
Well, my daughter fell pregnant, or became pregnant, when she was 17 after a 2-month relationship with somebody. We had a very tearful exchange where she said that she really didn't feel that she wanted to go ahead with the pregnancy. I told her that I would support her either way. She made up her mind. We went to Ealing. She's very young. She came across these people outside, and I asked her again at that time whether she was really sure. We had the most fantastic care within the clinic. Out of the room, they actually asked her whether she was really sure, because obviously she's young, and advised her about things like possible guilt and all of that, but she went ahead. And now she, has a daughter of her own. She has a life. She has a PhD, and I don't believe any of that would have happened if she'd gone ahead with the pregnancy.
What impact did protesters outside have on you and your daughter?
It made me very angry and her very sad.
Why did it make you angry?
Because I felt that they really should just back off. This is a very hard decision. Nobody has an abortion lightly, in my view. It's a very hard decision for anybody to make. It's not easy. And so that made me angry. It just made her feel guilty, sad. all the rest of it.
Louisa, let me ask you, the council meets tonight to discuss the next step in whether to bring in this protection order. Do you think they should?
Yes, I think they should go ahead, and those people shouldn't be allowed to be at clinic doors, making vulnerable people feel worse about everything. Everybody's situation is different. They don't know the reasons why someone is there. They shouldn't make people feel like that. It's wrong.
I mean, you may have heard the representative from the Good Counsel Network say, actually, they do, what she said was, they do offer some women support who look like they need support. And in some cases, the woman changes her mind about having an abortion.
Yes, it's true. Some women do change their mind, but it has to be the woman's decision. It's her body. It's her decision. She's in charge of her body. If she thinks it's not the right time to have a child, whatever circumstances she has, no one should try to change her mind. It's the woman's decision if she wants to go ahead or not.
Lisa, finally, do you think any kind of protest outside abortion clinics should be banned with the bringing in of a protection order? Briefly.
Briefly, I applaud freedom of speech, but I think that circumstances regarding abortion are so varied that they should basically not be allowed.
OK. Thank you both. I'm really grateful that you came on the programme. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Louisa. Thank you very much.
Now, council in Ealing could become the first in England to enforce an exclusion zone around an abortion clinic. Campaigners say a buffer zone is needed to prevent anti-abortion protesters harassing women as they use the clinic. So a necessary protection for women using the service, or an infringement of the right to protest. Joining me now from central London is the chair of Labour Life, Ed Rennie, and also from Cardiff, we're hoping to speak to Dr. Pam Lowe, who's a senior lecturer in sociology, there she is, who has researched the effect the protests have had on abortion patients. To you, Ed Rennie, first of all, it isn't anything that guarantees the safety of women and indeed staff using these abortion clinics to be welcomed.
Well, I don't see what relevance that has. Good Counsel Network are outside abortion clinics, and they're offering support for women who, in their heart of hearts, don't really want to have an abortion.
They say it's support, and the Ealing Council considers it to be a public order offence.
Well, Ealing Council are considering that. They have absolutely no evidence of that whatsoever. In fact, I was formerly a member of Ealing Council for the Labour Party, and I'm kind of astounded at my former colleagues are pursuing this without any evidence of harassment whatsoever. What Good Counsel Network do is they offer a leaflet and they say to women going in, we're here to offer you support if you want to continue with your pregnancy. Now, if you're pro-choice, and a woman is vulnerable, she doesn't want to have an abortion, she feels she's pressurized into an abortion for economic circumstances, family members or a boyfriend or an abusive husband, and in truth she wants to continue with the pregnancy and have her child, but she feels she's not supported, then she welcomes that offer of support, and there are hundreds of women who have been offered that support and continue to receive that support as long as they wish to receive it.
Okay.
So that is something that's definitively pro-choice, and if you want to remove that choice to those women who don't have a broadband connection or aren't wealthy enough for all the support that everyone else can get, then that is not a pro-choice position.
OK. Pam Lowe is not a pro-choice position. You've researched this. What impact do these people standing outside clinics have? As Ed says, they're simply holding out leaflets. They're offering support, they're offering advice.
Well, I think Ed has made specific reference to the Good Counsel Network, and of course it's important to say that the different groups involved in standing outside clinics vary enormously, and there's no control over who comes and who goes and what individuals do. So it might be the case that someone there for the Good Counsel Network doesn't necessarily be abusive. That doesn't mean to say that other groups are not abusive, and I think that's what's important to remember. There is no control over who stands outside the clinic, and this is a very specific form of street harassment. Women feel harassed because they don't know what the intentions are for the people outside the clinic, and there's been all sorts of reports. You know, women have been sprayed with holy water, women have been, called murderers. what happens outside the clinic varies enormously, and it's uncontrollable because it just depends on who turns up on the day. And women do feel harassed about that, and they don't necessarily need someone outside the clinic to give them a choice, because the idea that it's only people outside the clinic that offer women choices is based on a really strange idea about what happens inside abortion clinics. And if women go into an abortion clinic and say they're being coerced, the abortion clinic will not do the procedure and will offer them proper support from people who are qualified to give it.
OK, Ed, let's just put those points to you. I mean, in terms of advice that you get if you are pregnant and unwanted, you can go to lots of different places. You can go to your GP, you can Google it. I know you said those without broadband connection, but you know, most people have access to a GP, and these two things immediately offer you advice and guidance on both things. I just Googled it myself. The first thing that brought me up was the NHS. It showed you links to how an abortion is carried out. It tells you can go to an NHS-run abortion clinic. You should speak to your partner. You can talk to your GP. There is no restriction on women getting this information themselves. Why is it that people outside these clinics feel they need to reinforce this information?
Well, what they've found is that a lot of women feel that that support is not available to continue with their pregnancy because they're poor, because they're coerced, because of economic circumstance. They feel they can't afford to have a child or have another child.
Are these people standing outside, if this woman can't afford to have a child, are these people standing outside these clinics going to support that child for the next 18 years?
Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I said in my first comments, is that Good Counsel Network make themselves available to support these women for as long as they need or want that support. That is the whole basis of the charity, and that is to help women who are facing difficult circumstances, who do not want to have an abortion, but want to have the choice to continue with their pregnancy, but have not found that support elsewhere. Now, the point is, yes, of course, Life Charity and many other works, including Good Counsel Network, have online support that people can go to, and they have multiple different methods. What Good Counsel Network have found is that, nevertheless, there are still women who are in unclear situations of immigration, or who are too poor to access the internet, as I said, and this is the only way they're receiving support for the choice to continue with their pregnancy, which is what they want, and they welcome receiving this leaflet, and they welcome receiving this offer of support.
I do know that internet is available for free at most libraries, so you don't have to have money to go on the internet. Pam Lowe, isn't Ed's point fair, though? You know, if minds are being changed, these organisations wouldn't exist if they weren't at least having some success. If lives are being changed at the gates of these abortion clinics, doesn't it show that there are some women out there who aren't considering all the options before they go through with it?
Well, I mean, it might be the case that there's a very small number of women who prefer to talk to random strangers outside the clinic than actually qualify, proper professionals. But I think that's a very small minority. And the fact of the matter is that the majority of women going to the clinic do not want to discuss their private business on the pavement. And this is a breach of healthcare privacy. You know, the different groups, and as I say, it's different groups. You don't know who's going to turn up. Some of them are, will film women going in and side out clinics. And it's a breach of healthcare privacy, and there is absolutely no need for them to be there. If women go into an abortion clinic and they are in two minds about having an abortion, they don't have it. We know from the data that the amount of women who do not proceed with an abortion does not vary, regardless of whether people are outside or not. So they're not actually having the effect that they think they're having, but they are causing a large amount of distress to women when in their attempts to actually stop abortion, which is what these organisations are for. They're explicitly against abortion, and that's what their central aim is.
I did appeal on Twitter to see if anybody had any thoughts about this. Nikki Hodgson, who's one of Sky contributors, she's also an author, she said, one of the most distressing things about the abortion I had was the protest. Nobody takes the decision lightly. To protest about somebody entering or leaving a clinic is abuse. Ed Rennie, why do you and these groups think that you have any right at all to intervene in a private medical matter?
Good Counsel Network started getting involved in doing this work because they found that there were prayer groups, and these are not protests, these are These are prayer vigils outside the clinics, and that they found that other groups who were outside these clinics were having women who were not being reached through all the means that have been mentioned, including by myself. Now the point is, Dr. Pam can speak to these women who have been helped by Good Counsel Network, and so the reason that anyone has the freedom,
but there are women who go to clinics and don't go through with abortions. There are women who go there and they talk about it and they decide against it. Women walk out of these clinics every day. Just because they walk in doesn't mean they're going to have an abortion.
Well, exactly, and that's the point, is that Good Counsel Network do not assume that every woman who's going to the clinic is going for an abortion. They're considering an abortion, but many of them, hundreds, at one clinic in particular, have found that they are under pressure to have an abortion for economic reasons, for pressures from family, you know, in coercive situations as well, but also there may be refugees or illegal immigrants. And what they need is the offer of charitable support, solidarity, and support continuing through the pregnancy, through childbirth, and through that young child's life until they no longer need that support. This is the support that's offered by Good Counsel Network, and buffer zones will remove that offer of support. It will remove choice for those women who feel they're not supported in any way but to have an abortion. You can't be pro-choice if the only choice that's available is abortion. And Mary Stopes and the other abortion clinics, they don't offer support.
But it isn't the only choice. When you go to your GP or when you look online, it says, you know, it's a big decision. You have to talk to friends. You have to seek impartial advice. This is what it involves. Make sure it's the right decision for you. That's impartial, is it not?
The abortion clinics only offer abortion. They do not offer support continuing with the pregnancy, and they do not offer support throughout that young child's childhood after giving birth.
Okay,
that is what Good Counsel Network and other groups offer.
No.
Okay,
abortion clinics don't offer anything else apart from abortion.
Pam, is that true?
It's not true. Well, the abortion clinic will make appropriate references for anyone who wants to continue like the pregnancy and need extra support. So they will refer women on, for example, if it's coercive situations. Can you let me finish, please? Right. So the abortion clinics will refer to professional organisations. They will refer, for example, if women are being coerced, to organisations like Women's Aid. That happens routinely. And actually, you know, the problem is that these organisations, and they vary enormously about how much pressure they put on women outside the clinic. There is no control. They call themselves pavement counsellors, but they're not qualified counsellors on the pavement at all. And, you know, and the majority of women experience this as harassment. And the idea that this is the only line between women having and not having abortion is just ridiculous. There are plenty other avenues, and women who go to abortion clinics and don't want to continue can be referred to professional organisations, they can be referred to social services, they can be referred to Women's Aid, they can be referred to an awful lot of places that are actually professionally qualified in supporting the women. So the idea that, you know, it's only, you know, the people outside the clinic offer support is just not true at all.
OK. They were going to have to leave it. It's Ealing Council who are deciding this issue tonight. I'm afraid we're out of time there. Ed Rennie, Pam Lowe, thank you both very much. Ealing Council is going to have a meeting tonight to discuss whether or not they should implement one of these buffer zones in their borough.